Hello guys, welcome back to the TFD family. You're rocking with Alvo today. As you know, Cordy is not well, hoping she's back very soon, but for today, you're with your boy Alvo. So let's get right into it. So, today is January 10th, and just like that, the deadline has officially come and gone. No extensions, no last-minute miracles. This applies both to the WNBA and the NBA side of things, including the WNBA owners and the Players Association. Whatever leverage there was, that window is closing fast. Now, right on cue, ESPN drops this long, drawn-out interview that was clearly locked and loaded for today, featuring Napheesa Collier and Nneka Ogwumike. And when I say long, I mean absurdly long. There is no way to cover it without going live for over an hour. I'll still go through it because based on what's already surfaced, there's a lot to unpack and not in a good way. What really stands out is the confusion. The messaging is all over the place. You now have direct contradictions between what Nneka is saying and what Breanna Stewart said earlier. Breanna sounded optimistic, like negotiations were still moving forward. Nneka, completely different tone. And that disconnect, that says a lot. Shout out to Fever Soldia, said, there is no way that Nneka Ogwumike is this fucking stupid. That money came from the NBA ticket money to buy that new Ferrari. Does she not know that most WNBA owners are NBA owners? And one is an NFL owner? Boy, the WNBPA bleep are bottom of the barrel stupid. Using some extraordinary words. So, this comment came from the ESPN interview that I am talking about, and this actually rolled out of Nneka Ogwumike's mouth. Quote, "The league and teams saying that they're losing money is like saying their pockets are empty while you're also holding the keys to a brand new Ferrari." Now, some of you might be thinking, well, these owners can afford Ferraris. And sure, you'd probably be right. But here's the part that keeps getting completely ignored. How do you think they made the money to buy those Ferraris in the first place? It wasn't from WNBA revenues. Not even close. That money came from the NBA side of the business, or from entirely separate ventures. In some cases, it comes from ownership of NFL teams. Mark Davis, for example, owns the Raiders. That's where real cash flow comes from. So when you hear comments like this, what's really being said is, we're willing and we expect to keep getting paid off the back of the NBA, or wherever the money happens to come from. At this point, it doesn't even matter to them. They're not asking the league to sustain itself. They're not asking for growth-based compensation. They just see a wealthy owner and assume entitlement. That's what bothered me. I saw one of these comments and just shook my head. I mean, you've got to be kidding me. And honestly, the players are starting to look worse and worse the more they talk. At some point, they might want to stop doing interviews, because every quote like this only reinforces the same narrative. Let's be real. The WNBA has never turned a profit. That's not an opinion, that's a fact. So when people act shocked that the money didn't come from league revenues, it just tells me they don't understand the business at all. I read it, paused, and just couldn't believe what I was seeing. So now we're at the point where Napheesa Collier and Nneka Ogwumike are suddenly channeling Caitlin Clark. And the timing is interesting, to say the least. It feels like one of those moments where, when everything else fails and the attention isn't there, you reach for the Caitlin Clark card. You try to invoke her name, her impact, her popularity. The problem is, it doesn't actually line up with what Caitlin Clark herself has been saying. Because when you listen closely, it sounds like they fundamentally disagree with her approach. And that takes you back to the strike vote. Remember when that went to a vote and we found out there were 3 players who didn't support it? 3. At the time, a lot of people speculated that Caitlin Clark was one of them. Then her comments started coming out, and they only fueled that belief. In fact, if I'm remembering correctly, her Team USA comments may have come out even before the strike vote. I could be wrong on the exact timing, but the substance is what matters. Her tone, her perspective, her priorities, they felt completely different from the rest of the messaging coming from the union leadership. It was a more measured approach, less confrontation, short pause, more long-term thinking. And that contrast is becoming harder and harder to ignore.
So this is Caitlin Clark's quote, right? "This is the biggest moment the WNBA has ever seen, and it's not something that can be messed up, and we're going to fight for everything that we deserve," Clark said during a 3-day USA basketball training camp at Duke University. "At the same time, we need to play basketball. That's what our fans crave, and that's what all of you crave as well, is you want the product on the floor. It's important that we find a way to play this next season." Okay, so right here said, but in a new joint interview with ESPN, WNBPA President Nneka Ogwumike and Vice President Napheesa Collier agreed with Clark that some compromise is needed in negotiations as the stakes are just too large. Well, it doesn't really sound like they're genuinely on board with Caitlin Clark's comments. It feels like they toss her name out there to kick things off, set the table, and then after that, it just turns into a lot of empty noise, rambling, hedging, and vague talking points that don't actually line up with what she was saying.
Here said, "We absolutely agree with Clark. We just feel like the league is not agreeing." I want to know to what extent you agree with Clark, because it's clear y'all don't agree with her fully. Said Collier said, I think that we have been very compromising. Like, we're not asking for anything crazy. I think we've been very respectful, very realistic with what we're asking, and we are compromising." Okay. Ogwumike, a star forward for the Seattle Storm, described feeling resistance. No kidding. Because you're asking for things that are unrealistic. I'm sure you are feeling resistance. Said WNBA, that is disappointing and surprising, generating pessimism that a new CBA will be in place anytime soon. I guess won't be in place. Here quotes, "I really do feel like the league needs to really pay attention and listen and take notice of exactly what we're coming to the table with time and time again. Because we've been in the room trying to figure out what we can do to get both sides to be closer," Ogwumike said. "We've been more than flexible, more than reasonable, and it's really sad and disappointing to see that the league doesn't see players' wins and league wins." Well, as long as they stay locked into this revenue-sharing fantasy, they're not going to get it. They're just not. And that's what makes all of this so frustrating to watch. The logic seems to be, well, the owners have Ferraris, so we deserve that money too, even if it has to come from somewhere else. That's not how any business works, and pretending otherwise doesn't make it true. Let's be honest about the reality of the league. Yes, there are a few teams doing well. The Golden State Valkyries sell out. The Indiana Fever are doing strong numbers. The New York Liberty are solid. The Las Vegas Aces are solid. No one is disputing that. But that's a handful of franchises. After that, the rest of the league is a very different story. You're talking about teams like the Atlanta Dream, the Connecticut Sun, the Dallas Wings, even the Chicago Sky with Angel Reese can't consistently sell out their own arena. That's the truth, whether people like it or not. And now that the deadline has arrived, suddenly it's time to channel Caitlin Clark again. Now it's time to bring her name back into the conversation to grab attention and pull fans back into the narrative. Stop it. I'm serious. I guarantee you there is real disagreement happening behind the scenes among these players. I said this in a video I just dropped. When does the infighting start? Because it sounds like it may have already started. Caitlin Clark is smart. She understands something very basic. Without basketball, without fans, there is no money for anyone. Period. You have to be realistic, and Adam Silver has been just as honest as he can be. Revenue sharing as being demanded was not going to happen. The NBA ran the numbers. The WNBA owners ran the numbers, and they didn't like what they saw. So the idea that owners should just do it anyway, just because they're rich, is absurd. The only reason this league is still alive is because it has been propped up for years. And even then, we found out last year that owners lost around $40 million. Those owners were quoted directly, saying they're tired of losing money. Eventually, a line was always going to be drawn. Eventually, reality was going to show up. Let the new media rights deal play out for several years. Let real profits exist. Then come back and negotiate a reasonable share, not 30%. That's insane. Compensation should be based on profit, not gross revenue. Asking for gross is basically saying, we want the money and we don't care if you lose money. Owners do care. That's business. It's honestly a miracle this league has lasted this long. Tell me what you think. I'm out. Peace. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe.